Thank you. Yeah, we are living in interesting times and there's not enough going wrong. So let's re-architect digital advertising. So a bit about myself. I'm a professor at Questrom. The chance that I win a Nobel Prize is zero. And I say this because Susan Athey was supposed to speak at this moment, and she sends her regret she wasn't able to make it. I did win the Paul Green Award, which is kind of a big deal for marketing. And Barbara Kahn followed me on Twitter today, so I'm really on a roll. But I'm actually not going to talk about research today. I'm a member of the WC3, which is a web standards organization. I'm part of the group that's talking about the future of advertising without cookies. So I'm going to kind of talk to you about that stuff today. So as many of you know, the death of the cookie is on the horizon here. This is as a result of privacy regulation and browsers deciding to have already killed off cookies, or Google has said that they're going to get rid of cookies in a year and a half. So today, in the limited time I have, I'm going to talk about what is the value of cookies, what does advertising look like without cookies, and can privacy and modern advertising coexist? So the first question is, what is the value of these things? And it's good to remind ourselves of the work that cookies do, because cookies allow for cross-site digital ad identity, and that powers three key value generators. The first is targeting, and a lot of attention goes to the sexy things like behavioral targeting and retargeting, but plain old ad frequency and reach management is key to you guys in the basic advertising that you want to do. And losing that would really change how you'd want to advertise. The second value generator is measurement. So we are used to doing cross-site attribution and ad effectiveness measurement in the digital world, and that's being threatened. And this powers the final value generator, which is automation at scale, optimization through programmatic. So how much does this matter? Well, ad identity increases ad value by something like 2 to 3x in the status quo. How do we know this? Well, there's a lot of industry studies and academic studies, including work by myself, that consistently finds that if you don't have cookies, then the prices and the value that advertising creates falls by something like 50 to 70%, with the exception of one study that found 4%, but its raw difference was 40% between cookies and cookie-less impressions. So what does advertising look like without cookies? Well, I see it as having four big tentpoles. The first is context, second is sign-in, third is the walled gardens, and fourth is the birds, which is the work of the WC3, which I'll talk about in the next section. So beginning with context, the challenge for you as advertisers is that people spend a minority of their time browsing content that is valuable to you as an advertiser, right? Most of us are not spending time, searching for the next car to buy or searching for Coke versus Pepsi. And so this creates a challenge of scaling this up. And one way that you might see this happening is that large publisher networks might start to share information about when users are visiting one part of their website that's of interest to advertisers on another part of their website, which is like poor man's behavioral targeting. But we think about like analytics here, this sucks. Like you're losing cross-site reach and frequency, you're losing the ability to do cross-site measurement, and you're stuck in a last click attribution world because you can't weave these data points together as we've been able to do in the digital world. So what does this mean? It puts an advantage for advertisers to work with large publishers that offer scale, and specifically for brand advertisers to work with brand safe publishers. And there's going to be a premium to be paid for that. Then when we think of this, the second tentpole here, that's going to be these hashed email identifier solutions. And the industry is really moving very quickly in this regard on both the advertiser and ad tech and publisher sides. And what this does, though, is it creates winners and losers based on whether or not you have a first-party relationship with the consumer. So if you're an advertiser and you're a D2C advertiser, DTC advertiser, direct-to-consumer advertiser, and you have a bunch of customer emails, this is good news for you. But if you're selling soup, like a CPG company, this is not very good news. This is also going to create barriers for entry for new advertisers that don't have these email lists. The good news, though, is that you actually get an identifier solution that replaces the cookie. And the even better news is that it's better than a cookie, because you can do cross-device identifiers to get a sense of who a person is on their cell phone versus their desktop. The problem, though, is how do you scale this up? And you're going to have fewer publishers that are participating in this. It's going to be an opt-in basis on the consumer, and it's not clear how much these identifiers are going to be speaking to each other across publishers. And I'll just kind of interject a cruel irony here, is that we're replacing these pseudonymous cookies with emails, which are personally identifiable, albeit with consent. It's kind of a very bitterly ironic consequence of a big push for privacy. So then we get to the walled gardens. And the news here is that the rich get richer, because for most of these companies' services, their capabilities are going to be able to be maintained. I mean, they may have some hit, like maybe marginally reduced third-party conversion tracking, but the saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, seems apt here. I mean, these companies represent approximately 60% of digital ad spending. They offer cross-device identity, they offer scale, they offer ease of use and a one-stop shop for advertisers to use many different products. And so that's going to further advantage these companies. And then we come to the last part, which is how can privacy and modern advertising coexist? And here we come to the birds. So the birds is how we affectionately refer to the various proposals in front of the WC3, like sparrow and parrot and turtle dove. These are all long acronyms that just happen to take the names of various birds. So I'm not going to talk about these detailed proposals. I'm just going to kind of give you the high-level flavor of what's going on here. So at a high level, the good news from a privacy perspective is that advertisers don't actually care about individuals. That's just not enough to get this going. Advertisers care about audiences, and that's a good thing for privacy, because that's kind of safety in numbers or groups. But what the WC3 is doing is thinking about how advertisers want to interact with these audiences and the various use cases that they have. So for instance, advertisers want to measure clicks, and they want to measure conversions. In particular, they want to differentiate between click-through and view-through conversions. Advertisers want to do retargeting, and the recency of retargeting information is extremely valuable to advertisers. They also want to measure reach and frequency. And if you've ever seen a talk by myself, and I gave one a couple years ago at MSI, advertisers want to run experiments. Yes, you should be running experiments all the time. And so what I end up with is just a lot of data associated with these different users. And you can see why identity is a really elegant solution that solves all these use cases. And if you go away from that and go into these groups that protect privacy, then you have some hard trade-offs. In particular, there's this tension between privacy and measurement and targeting, the size of group that you can targeting and how you measure them. And specifically, when we talk about analytics, this means that we may need to move away from thinking about individuals and start thinking about groups again. And start moving away from getting real-time feedback and optimization of programmatic advertising to getting delays of hours or days before we get sufficient kind of aggregation to then optimize on that. This is also a tough thing for competitors, because if you have a minimum group size, this is going to exclude really small advertisers and certainly advantage the optimization of large advertisers. So I want to conclude just with a discussion question for you guys to think of as we eventually move to our discussion groups, and that is, how is your company planning for the post-cookie future, and what are you thinking about and engaging in experimentation with these new things that are going to replace cookies in the future? All right, thank you very much.